So the big idea that we're learning today in solving absolute value equations algebraically is we're going to set up two equations. So this is the one big idea that we learned today. When we're solving these, we set up two equations. We set up one where we keep the equation exactly as we see it. Oops. Try to keep it exactly as we see it. And our second equation, we take that whole equation and make it negative. Now we solve each of them separately. How do we solve this equation? Well, you'd probably think about expanding it. Now if we combine all of our like terms together, I'm going to move this 4 over. Can you see that when I move this 4 over, it's going to cancel out with that 4? So all I have left to do is distribute this. And then we ask ourselves, well, how do we solve this kind of question? We've already made one side equal to 0. You would have to factor. We just distributed that 3. You see that we can take out the negative 3, which was sort of a backward step of what we did, which is sometimes that happens. You'd go in one direction to see, oh, I have to factor this, and realize that it was factored at the beginning. How do I factor this part? Well, you notice it was factored at the beginning. So we've just worked our way backwards from what we had to begin with. And had we seen as a shortcut right away that if we had moved the 4 over to begin with and those things canceled out, it would have saved us some time. But this isn't bad that we've done this. What's our answer going to be? X equals 2. We'll do the verification. Oh, let's do the verification right now. Let's check our left side. Let's check our right side. Our left side was just a number, right? It was just 4. Our right side had the absolute value of negative 3 x minus 2 squared plus 4. And if we plug in 2, we'll get, this will be 0 plus 4. The absolute value of 4 is just 4. So this one works. And we've got our first answer. If we look at our second equation, distribute that negative, I'm going to get plus 3. Make one side equal to 0. Now, this is going to be an x squared equation. You have a couple of choices. The fastest choice is the choice that most likely you use the least amount of time. Okay? How often when you're solving quadratic equations do you use the completing the square technique? Probably very little now. You usually use factoring, right? You usually use factoring and quadratic formula. Okay? If you can recognize the completing the square technique here, it will be the fastest. The way that you solve with completing the square is you have to complete the square. Can you see it's already done? So all you would have to do now is move the 8 over, divide by 3, take the square root of both sides. Remember, when you take the square root of both sides, you have to do plus or minus. And then add 2 to both sides. However, are we allowed to have a square root on the bottom of an equation? No, so we have to rationalize the denominator by multiplying by root 3 and root 3. and we get 2 plus or minus the square root of 24 over 3 equals x. Is this completely simplified? We also have to go back to our radicals unit. 24 is 4 times 6. Okay? That's the fastest way. So you could also solve this with the quadratic formula. And we can check it now. It's not going to be the most fun thing to check, but I'll just say it works. Okay?
If it's usually that complicated, does it
Usually works. All right, so
would that be bad for a test?
no. 11 and 12. Okay? Just as a shortcut to decide whether or not the check will work, the only time that the check doesn't work is when the side opposite the absolute value is negative. But the side absolute value is just a positive 4 here. So I already know that whatever answers we're going to get will work. Okay, so 11 and 12 are the two that you can do.